Tyler, the Creator, is a very relevant artist today who has not only increased in popularity over the years, but also improved his music drastically year after year, going from dropping absolute doo-doo garbage,
Okay.
from dropping some of his best projects that are absolute quality in later years. Not only has Tyler, the Creator, matured as a person over his musical career, but his music also shows that, getting better after each consecutive year. From 2016 to 2025, I feel that Tyler, the Creator has one of the most consistent and underrated discographies in hip-hop history. From Flower Boy, IGOR, Call Me If You Get Lost, Chromacopia, and Don't Tap the Glass. But the one that stands out to me the most is probably his most quality and most important album in his discography, IGOR. Now, I just want to come out here and say IGOR is not my favorite Tyler album. It's not even my second favorite, but I feel that it's his most important and honestly his fan favorite. So if you were to start off with a Tyler album, that would be the best one to start out with, considering most people think it's his best, and undoubtedly is almost perfect. IGOR is a short and sweet album, but more importantly, it's very synth heavy. Like, this album drenches you in synths. There's heavy synths on every single song, giving this album a futuristic and darker vibe, as well as making some songs making you want to levitate. Personally, I love synths. It's one of my favorite things that producers add to songs. They sound very heavenly. They sound so full of life and sound. However, if you don't like synths, I feel this album will probably change your mind. IGOR is essentially about Tyler falling in love with another boy, and this boy has a girlfriend. Tyler essentially does everything in his power to get this boy to break up with his girlfriend so that they can be together. However, in the end, it doesn't work out, and Tyler ends up feeling used and wasting his time, as well as coping, saying he's getting better and forgot about him, but he really hasn't, creating a loop in Tyler's love life, which you'll see at the end of the album. There's literally a loop after the last song, looping back into the first song, creating a actual loop in his album. Now, I'm going to review every song on IGOR since it's only 39 minutes. However, with longer albums that are over an hour, I don't feel like I'm going to do that because that'll just take too much time. But with most albums under an hour, I'll probably review each song individually since it shouldn't take too long. However, I'm not going to talk about the synths on these songs because, like I said, this album's synth heavy, so there'd be no point in talking about the synths on each song. Just know, going into each song, they're all very synth heavy. There's not a single song on this album that doesn't have synths on it. So I feel I do not need to mention that for each song. The album starts out with an abrupt intro named IGOR's Theme. This song is very dark, ominous, and builds up, and the only real production on this album is just a huge synth in the back that you can hear throughout the whole song, while Tyler's lyrics build up and he starts singing later on in the song, setting off the tone for the album and basically how the rest of the album is going to sound, using that heavy synth to indicate that the album is synth heavy. Now, most of Tyler, the Creator's intros sound this way. They're very ominous, unique, and have very few words. They kind of just are a tone setter, and I really appreciate those with his intros, considering it sets a proper tone for the album, and you'll know basically how the whole album sounds based off just an intro, which is why I appreciate his intros. They are a great tone setter for his albums. Earthquake is next. Now, everyone knows Earthquake, with the iconic Playboi Carti feature, has a very catchy beat, has a very catchy hook, and is the first look at Tyler falling in love with his boy, with a heavenly beat with light production and soothing sounds. Now, Tyler's singing is quite controversial, considering a lot of people hate it and a lot of people like it. Tyler's singing ability is not quite like the rest of real singers. He has a very high-pitched voice, making it sound almost forced. However, on this album, I feel it comes naturally considering the production. It just matches and fits the premise and theme of the album, making it sound good. I think Tyler knows how to complement his production with his singing ability, which isn't necessarily the best and may sound forced, but he can make it sound good through his production, making his singing on this album quite quality to me. The next song, I think, again, has a very catchy hook, very quality rap, and quality beat that sounds very raw and catchy, as well as great background vocals, as well as Tyler becoming aware that he's falling in love with this boy. The next track is a skit, exactly what you run from, you end up chasing. I feel almost indicating that there is a real loop in this album, because towards the end, he ends up running from this boy, but then loops right back around to chasing the same thing. Right after that, it cuts to running out of time. This song to me has the best verse from Tyler and best singing, as well as the second best beat. It's very heavenly and outer spacey, and it sounds, of course, futuristic due to the synths, with a very catchy hook, which you'll notice every single song on this album has a very infectious hook, with Tyler basically explaining to this boy to come out and show his true self, just as Tyler's done, and be with him instead of this girl he's dating. With a heavenly outro to this song, it sounds quite beautiful. The next song, New Magic Wand, is quite possibly Tyler's most aggressive song and has a very aggressive beat, a very angry and emotional hook. hook. Great rapping on this song towards the second half, as well as Tyler basically giving the boy an ultimatum, saying that the boy can either be with Tyler or the girl, but if he stays with the girl, Tyler's out. This is one of Tyler's fan favorite songs, as well as one of his most popular, and it's very hype, aggressive, energetic, and fast-paced. The next song, A Boy Is a Gun, is a very dramatic vibe switch, with a very sad and melodic hook, and a very sad emotional beat, indicating Tyler's loss to this boy who ended up choosing the girl, explaining that the boy is dangerous and has ruined Tyler's mental. The song has a very hopeless sounding and sad beat that I quite love, and has a very unexplainable vibe to it, which makes the song quite enjoyable. The song has very raw rapping and lyrical rapping from Tyler, which I personally think has Tyler's best rapping on this album. Since the beat is so minimalistic, Tyler's lyrics and rapping ability is important here, and I think he delivers quite well. The next song, Puppet, takes a even deeper and more sad drop in vibe, with an even more depressing and sad beat, and a very miserable hook that are all quite infectious. And Tyler's rapping starts to pick up on the second half of the album, due to the beats being more relatively minimalistic and more raw, with less singing than before. That sounds like 5 quality albums to me. However, there are still some parts where he sings his heart out. And his album has many hidden features, almost on every song. But I'm only gonna talk about this one, considering it's Kanye West on Puppet. You can hear him in the background. He is literally saying, "I'm your puppet." I know, guys, I know, I love Kanye. I just had to mention that. It's just a little fun fact. However, I don't know all the hidden features on this album, but there are quite a few. And if you feel interested, I would look them up before listening to the album and see if you can catch them. Makes the album a little more enjoyable. The song has a very miserable and moody beat that I quite love, and is a majority of the song, especially in the second half, creating a more sad and depressing vibe, which I quite like. Then we get to the next song, What's Good, which picks up the pace a little bit, switching the vibe to a more aggressive and fast-paced song yet again. And to those who like more of rapping Tyler, this tends to be their favorite song on the album, because this song honestly doesn't sound like the rest of the album. It has very lyrical and catchy and flirtatious rapping from Tyler, on top of a very aggressive and fast-paced beat, with Tyler's typical bragging manner. And now this song, I know, features Kid Cudi. He's also a hidden feature, and you can hear him audibly towards that second half of the song, with Tyler's typical bragging manner, and is very aggressive, in your face, and again, tends to be most people's favorite when they're not down to hear Tyler sing or be emotional, and they just want to hear old Tyler. This is a song for you. However, in the next song, which is actually 2 songs in one, Gone Gone Thank You, he picks up the more melodic singing / rapping vibe again. However, it's not quite as sad this time, and more reminisceful to the boy, and more thanking him for the experience that Tyler was given through living in his truth and being thankful for it. Gone Gone has Tyler's most obvious singing with his high-pitched voice so far. However, I quite like it. It might not be for most people. However, I encourage you to give it a try, considering the beat is obviously quality, considering it's Tyler the Creator, and he's a great producer, with a great hook in my opinion, where Tyler's singing actually really hits there. The beat starts to fade a little bit and get weaker, and then Tyler's rapping starts to pick up, which is personally my favorite part. Tyler starts spitting lyrically and consistently, deepening his voice to add a sudden vibe switch to the song. However, towards the end of this song, it cuts to a man saying, "I hate wasted potential," indicating that Tyler could have had what he really wanted to, but it didn't work out, hurting Tyler. And the beat switches to Thank You, which I think is the best beat in the album. It's very heavenly, and this song honestly makes anyone levitate. Even if you're not a Tyler fan, if you listen to the song, at least the second half of it on Thank You, that beat is by far quality and a perfect beat that'll make you levitate, and is very easy to listen to. As far as the beat goes, that's about all that this second half is. However, there are some background singing vocals, but I feel the beat is the most important part, and that's why he added it in the 2-in-1 songs, so that it fits better, because that song being on its own wouldn't really make sense. So I think that's a good move by him to add both songs in one. It adds more flavor to both songs in general, and they both go together really well, considering they're both talking about the same thing: appreciation of this boy that Tyler really wanted to be with. In the next song, I Don't Love You Anymore,
For what is a man? What has he got?
Tyler claims he is over this boy and has moved on and doesn't care much for him anymore, with a hook very high-pitched singing Tyler, and it sounds rather awkward, just like the beat does, which I think fits quite well. And again, Tyler's rapping kicks in after the first hook, building down slower, making the beat more minimalistic, giving Tyler a chance to fit in his lyrics there. And again, I think Tyler's rapping on this album is very consistent. I don't think he really has a bad verse in terms of rapping. Obviously, you can argue with the singing. You may not like it. However, I think with the rapping, it's on undoubtable, and I personally enjoy the singing and also appreciate that he tried something new. And every album after this, he sings a lot, and I think he gets a lot better at it. He grows vocally. Not to say that this album didn't do it well, I just think his voice gets more mature and he grows vocally. However, I think this album's vibe and beats complement his singing the most, considering he sings the most on this album. The very creepy outro to this song, a very ominous sound, it cuts in to the last song of the album, Are We Still Friends?
Happy birthday, happy birthday, birthday fart.
With Tyler basically asking this guy if we can still be friends, because you know deep down Tyler still really wants this man. Even though he said he doesn't love him anymore, he's just coping and really wants to date this man. I think this song has one of his most iconic beats and has a very emotional and infectious hook, as do the rest of the songs. However, I think this one stands out due to him taking a different and more raw singing approach. Instead of higher pitch, he uses his true voice, which I thought also sounded quite nice, just as his higher singing pitch. However, I think his singing on this song is more digestible, and I feel a lot more people will enjoy, as his higher singing pitches are honestly acquired taste. The very nice and very built up beat drop towards the second half of the song, with Tyler going all out in singing format. And then once this song ends, you'll notice it directly transitions into the first song again, indicating that Tyler is going through all the steps again over and over, because he can't let this boy go, creating a constant loop in the album, which I think is quite cool. And I think it also complements how short the album is. It's almost like a roller coaster. And obviously, you know I had to buy this album, considering it's a roller coaster of fun and entertainment, as well as quality. This album is one of the greatest love albums made in the past 20 years, honestly. And it's quite consistent. And like I said, I love the synths. That's my favorite thing that you can add to a song. It sounds quite heavenly. I love the vibe. It sounds quite digestible. And honestly, there's a song for every scenario you could be in. You got New Magic Wand for the gym. You got Gone Gone Thank You for Around the House. You got Are We Still Friends for a walk. This album is very full of variety, nice and short and sweet, with honestly not a single bad track. There's not much wrong with this album, it's just not my personal favorite. However, I can definitely appreciate this album for what it is, which is why I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. And honestly, this album, I recommend it heavily. Even if you don't like it, it's not long at all and doesn't waste too much of your time. However, I think 99% of people will enjoy this album. That being said, it's not my favorite Tyler album, so I encourage you to go listen to more Tyler albums and try to find your favorite one. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that some of Tyler's older albums are dog poop. However, he has some older albums that I actually quite enjoy. Honestly, Wolf is one of my favorite Tyler albums. It used to be my favorite, and then Call Me If You Get Lost came out, and I think as of right now, that's my personal favorite, but it can always change. That being said, I encourage you to listen to IGOR. Honestly, first, I feel like it's his most digestible. I know I say normally to go in linear order with artists, but Tyler's first studio album is... I don't even know. Like, I just wouldn't listen to that first. I feel like that should be like a towards the end kind of deal. However, some of his older albums are quite well and good to start with as well, such as Wolf. But as I've said before, Tyler just matures, as well does his music the more years go by. And honestly, as of now, I only see Tyler getting better. So that being said, check out IGOR. I recommend that first. And then after that, if you like it or not, check out his other albums. Maybe you'll get a different favorite. That being said, that's the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next review.